Hello friends, Pastor Randall. Welcome to our next step along the way in the book of Judges. We're going to talk about adult Samson today. As we know, his story is that of a spirit-filled and faithful mother who did what she needed to do. And we assume she raised the baby right along the way, just like he would be a Nazarite from birth. But when we meet him, he's a young man in the next chapter. And he goes down and he sees a Philistine woman that he finds very attractive. So, especially in a day when you are supposed to kind of stay within your people, he wants to marry one of the oppressors. And his family does not deny him. They try to turn him. They're like, Samson, don't you really want one of our people? And he's like, no, nobody's as pretty as her. Again, bit of a meathead, right? So, he goes down and he woos her. They do because he's pretty strong and buff and perhaps important to get on their side. They agree to a marriage. Along the way, as he's coming back home, he comes across a lion carcass, and some bees had made a hive inside of the dead beast. Now again, he's a Nazarite. He's not supposed to touch a dead thing. But he goes in, he breaks the hive open, not very nice to the bees, gets all the honey out. Kind of like a big dumb jock version of Winnie the Pooh. He eats the honey, and when he gets home, he still has some, and he gives it to his parents, but he doesn't tell them where it came from, because again, touching something that is part of a decaying body is definitely not kosher. And it would not be kosher for normal Jewish people, but most definitely a Nazarite. So Samson goes to get his bride. He decides, because the people are a little bit like, you're marrying an outsider, and they're giving him a hard time. So he decides to get them back by making a riddle nobody can answer. But it's very unfair, because the riddle is, out of the hunter comes the sweets. Out of a dead thing comes food. And of course, who can answer that riddle unless you were there, right? You got to be there to know it. So there comes a time, it's at his wedding feast, and the people of the town are very much lost as to what is going on. And so Samson's wife, foreshadowing how Samson has this weakness for women, we're like, come on, tell me what the riddle is. And Samson goes and he tells her about the lion. And so then the guys come out and they're like, we know the answer to your riddle. This makes Samson very mad. Now the Spirit of the Lord comes upon him, which seems like, if the Spirit of the Lord is a divine power that lands upon good people, this seems really weird because, except for we have to remember that the Philistines are oppressing God's people, so if this act weakens the Philistines, maybe it's part of a greater plan or something. Anyway, again, the Samson story fits better with like Hercules or Gilgamesh, or even though the Thor stories from up in the Nordic days were written a lot later. He's that type of character, and that's the type of person Samson is. Samson just loses it and kills 30 men. At that point, the father takes his daughter back and gives her to one of Samson's companions, who's apparently a Philistine as well. Samson just loves them Philistines, even though it's his job to kind of bring him down. Samson goes back home, he's upset, he comes back to try to get his wife, and they were like, well, I gave him to your buddy because I thought you hated her. That's why you killed everybody at the wedding, or killed 30 men at the wedding. Samson stalks off and is mad again. Well, because what her father did is creating acrimony between a heroic character that people are afraid of, the Philistines do two things. One, they grab her and her father and they burn them alive. And again, this brings Samson's anger. The Philistines go to the Judahites, again, kind of foreshadowing the most important tribe, the most powerful tribe is usually the first one to fold when there's oppression, and said, why don't you go take care of him, bring him to us. So they go to get Samson with 1,000 men, and Samson will not hurt his kin because there is some morality there. And Samson lets them bind him and will take him to the Philistines. And so they kind of do this thing where they do, and they're making him march over. It's almost like a prisoner exchange, if there's no exchange going. It's a one-way thing. The Philistines raise a loud cry. They celebrate this bad man being captured. The Spirit of the Lord comes upon Samson. He has this now, and this is the thing, does he always have the superhuman power? Does it only come when the Spirit of the Lord invigorates him? It definitely, in these early stories we're encountering this week, it definitely seems to be the latter, though it will seem to also be the former later. So, again, old-fashioned storytelling. Doesn't really care about consistency. Samson breaks his bonds, scares everybody, grabs the jawbone of a donkey, and he slaughters 1,000 Philistines. He even makes a song about it, comparing himself to a donkey, stubborn as a mule. This stubborn mule slayed 1,000 Philistines with another stubborn mule's jawbone. Ha ha ha. And this is where we leave Samson. After the slaughter of the 1,000 Philistines, the Philistines retreat, and Samson rules over 20 years of peace, which, as far as we have read into Judges at this moment, when you get to the end of Judges chapter 15, you go, story over, happy ending. I'm ready now to turn the page and read about the 2 or 3 or 4 judges that bridge from Samson to the next guy. But if you watched any of those Hollywood movies, you know that really the story of Samson is just beginning. Or if you've heard any of the Bible stories, you go, hey, wait a minute, where's this Delilah woman? She's always Samson and Delilah. Well, she's coming, and she's coming in our next video. Well, thank you for being with me, and God bless.